You're about to find out why some of the most talented young players you've ever seen never made it past 16. Not because they weren't good enough, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because nobody told them what scouts are actually watching for. And they spent years building the wrong things. This video is about 5 habits that separate the players who get signed from the ones who get passed by. And I'll warn you right now, some of what I'm about to tell you is going to feel deeply unfair, because it is. But there's a way through it, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly what to build and why it matters more than anything a coach has probably ever told you. Let's start with the one habit that scouts can literally see on film from across a stadium. Most players think the secret to looking good on the ball is what you do with your feet. Touch, turn, pass, and yes, that matters. But Professor Geir Jordet at the Norwegian School of Sports Sciences filmed over 250 professional players and found something that almost no academy ever teaches. The best midfielders in the world scan. They quickly turn their head away from the ball to gather information. 6 to 8 times in the 10 seconds before the ball even reaches them. 6 to 8 times before it arrives. Xavi was clocking roughly 0.8 scans per second at his peak. And in the Premier League, the most frequent scanners completed over 80% of their passes. The least frequent couldn't crack 60%. That's not a small gap. That's the difference between a player who looks composed and a player who looks lost. And here's the part that makes this habit so powerful. It's visible. A scout watching your game on a tablet at 11 p.m. doesn't need to see your step-overs. They can see your head movement. They can see you scanning or not scanning. It's one of the clearest signals of football intelligence that exists, and almost no one is teaching it. Call this the photo habit. Every 0.4 seconds, the elite players are taking a mental photograph of what's around them. They arrive at the ball already knowing where everyone is. But here's where it gets interesting, because most people hear scan more and think that's the whole lesson. It isn't. Jordet also found it's not just how often you look, it's when. The rule is to have your eyes on the ball the instant a teammate touches it, then look away between touches. He found a youth player who scanned 5 times in 5 seconds. High frequency, looks great on paper, but timed every single scan wrong. He was looking away, exactly when passes were being struck. The result? He was always late. Always reacting. A player who scans 3 times with perfect timing beats someone scanning 8 times badly every single time. So the habit isn't move your head constantly. The habit is building the judgment of when to look away and when to lock in. That's a skill, and the only way to build it is to make it a conscious part of every training session, every rondo, every small-sided game, until it's automatic. Now, let's talk about something that affects more young players than almost any other factor. And almost none of them know it's happening. Roughly 44% of academy players are born in just 3 months of the year. January, February, March. A University of Essex study tracing nearly 200 academy players found that across elite youth football, about 40% of players are born in the first quarter of the cutoff year. Only around 10% are born in the last quarter. This is called the relative age effect, and the reason is brutally simple. At age 9, a kid born in January can be almost a full year older than a kid born in December. At that age, a year is enormous. They're bigger, they're faster. Coaches pick them, academies sign them, and the smaller, later-born kids get released, not because they lack talent, but because they haven't had enough time to grow. That same Essex research found something even more striking. Of the academy players who actually made it to top-tier professional football, 0 were born in October, November, or December. 0. That sounds like a death sentence if your birthday is late in the year. But stay with me, because this flips completely. Sports scientist Cumming's research on biobanding, which is grouping kids by physical maturity rather than age, revealed something that changes how you should think about this entirely. The smaller, later maturing kids who weren't released, the ones who had to compete against bigger bodies every single week. They developed something the early developers never had to. superior technique, better decision-making, mental toughness that was forged under pressure, not inherited. Messi was on growth hormone treatment as a child. He was the small one. He had to be better technically just to survive. And when everyone else's bodies eventually caught up, his skills were already miles ahead. The early maturing kids who won everything on size often get exposed as adults because they never had to develop those habits. The late developers who survived are the most dangerous players in the world. So if you're the smaller player, if you're the one getting overlooked because someone else is just physically bigger right now, that's not a weakness. That's the forge. Your job is to make yourself technically impossible to release before your body catches up. Because the data says if you survive that filter, you come out the other side with advantages that size will never give you. Now, here's one that has an actual salary figure attached to it. Only about 18% of professional players are genuinely two-footed, and under a strict definition, truly equal use of both feet. It's less than 1%. Basically, nobody. London School of Economics research found that two-footed players earn a 14 to 15% wage premium over one-footed players at the same level. That's not a rounding error. That's a measurable, significant financial advantage that follows you through your entire career. But here's the catch that most people miss. The research specifically notes that two-footedness can only be properly developed in the early years. The window is open when you're young and your movement patterns are still being wired in. Once those patterns are set, retraining your weak foot becomes exponentially harder. It never becomes impossible, but it becomes a fight instead of a habit. This is the single most measurable, scout-visible habit a young player can build. Two-footedness shows up in every game, in every position, in every moment under pressure. It limits where defenders can push you. It opens angles that don't exist for one-footed players. And it pays, literally, for decades. The habit is simple. Every time you train alone, start with your weak foot, not after. First, make it the default. Your strong foot will always be there. Your weak foot needs the reps before your brain decides it's not worth the effort anymore. Before we get to the last habit, if you're finding this useful, drop a comment below with your birthday month. I'm genuinely curious what the breakdown looks like in this audience. Now, the last habit might be the most counterintuitive thing in this entire video. There's a phenomenon called the birthplace effect. Across multiple sports, confirmed in football specifically, players born in smaller cities, often under 500,000 people, are massively overrepresented at the professional level. Big cities are underrepresented. The reason isn't the coaching, it's not the facilities, it's space and freedom. Smaller places give kids more unstructured time to play, more pickup games with no adults organizing anything, more independent movement, more self-directed reps, closer relationships with coaches who actually know them as people, more total touches on the ball without a session plan telling them what to do. The research on what the players who actually made it had in common, the 4% who reached the top tier out of the roughly 0.5% who signed pro contracts from academies, points to self-confidence, first touch, dribbling, and technical quality. Not size, not raw pace. Technical habits that were built through thousands of reps that nobody scheduled. The habit here isn't find a small town. The habit is unstructured play, self-directed reps, playing when nobody's watching and nobody's coaching and nobody's telling you what to do. That's where the real wiring happens. Structured training makes you better at what you already know. Unstructured play makes you creative, adaptive, and technically fluent in ways that can't be drilled. So, here's where we land. 5 habits. Scanning with timing, not just frequency. Leaning into being the smaller player instead of waiting for a growth spurt. Building your weak foot right now while the window is still open. Accumulating unstructured touches on the ball. And understanding that the filter most academies use, size, pace, physical dominance, is not the filter that predicts who makes it. The scouts who pass players by are often rewarding things that won't matter at 21. The habits that actually predict success, the ones backed by the research, are exactly the ones you can build right now, regardless of how big you are, regardless of when you were born, regardless of whether you're in a city or a small town. The players who build these habits early don't just survive the system, they make the system work for them. And that's the whole game.